Okay, so welcome to this demonstration of the Kingman 1.5.0 release of the VividCharts application. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into sharing my screen. I got the agenda that we'll go through here to start off the call. So let me go ahead and share that. Okay, so in the application, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a little view that I have here to talk about this release. Again, thank you for joining. Okay, so we have quite a few things to go over today. A lot of it today in the demonstration will be about how pulling in new data and refreshing the data associated with your views, whether it be a standalone view or a summary view, works. So we have things like new roles that go with that. And so we'll go through kind of all that in stepwise fashion. The very first thing, though, that I want to show in the demo is that we have changed the application name in the navigator. So if you go out to your ServiceNow application and you're in the navigator here and you type VividCharts, what you're going to see here is you're going to see two things pop up depending on what you have installed. The application that we're demoing here, which used to be called the Data Engagement Platform, has been renamed to VividCharts. So you still have the same home and support menu, but you find it by using the VividCharts name. Again, previously that was the Data Engagement Platform. Now, if you have the previous version, the Service Portal version of our application installed, we have renamed that in the latest update to Service Portal Dashboards to make it distinct application. So again, search for VividCharts and clicking on Home will take you into the application. Okay. I'll come back to this screen just so I can follow the agenda over time. Again, here's what that looks like. Here's the old application, the VividCharts version 1 in the Service Portal. And then here's in the next experience, the Data Engagement Platform renamed to VividCharts. Okay, so we have a new role, and this role has a very specific purpose. The role is called the refresher role. And this role will be required when you want to give your users or even potentially stakeholders that are logging in the ability to update a view or a summary view with new data. So in order to get the refresh button to on demand kick off a data collection process, this refresher role is going to be required. I'm going to go through some different configurations of that role here in the demo. We also have some really good documentation coming out with this. And so you can always go, the easiest way to access that documentation is go to vividcharts.com, click on support, you'll get to our knowledge base. And there's a new article about data refreshing in the 1.5.0 release. So I'll go through a few things with that and how the refresher role gives you access to some of those things. Okay, so let's just go start looking at some of these things in the application itself. So I'm going to click over here. Okay, so here I'm in the main screen, the collections screen, and I have a collection created with things I want to demo. Let's go into our very first. So this is a view. So if I hover over this icon, you'll see that it's a view. I have edit and view access on this. I'm going to go into the editor access side of it so I can be pulled into the editor. Again, I need to have the builder role in order to access the editor. And this is one that I created. Now, when I go into a view, again, this is one that I created previously, you'll notice that we now have this item here, or this feature here called refresh frequency, which we didn't previously have. If I open up that menu, we now give you two options. So as it states here, we try to give you as much detail of what's going on by making this choice. The default of any new view that's created is going to be this on-demand view, and we'll show you how that works here in a little bit. Previously, it would have updated daily during the nightly job or the daily update when you had that scheduled job running. So now it defaults to the on-demand. You can switch it to daily if you want. Now, the difference between the two is if you select on-demand at night, if you're used to having your data update every night with the most recent information, it wouldn't do that with on-demand. It would only happen when someone clicks the refresh button on the view or the summary, as we'll look at here in a second. And the reason why we've made that update is many people have views that they don't use every day. So they may be submitting it weekly as potentially like a project status report, maybe monthly, such as like an executive deck that they need updated. And so it didn't make sense to pull data every single night when it was only being used weekly, monthly, or potentially quarterly with like a quarterly business review. So we now give you the ability to do that. And it helps optimize that nightly job in one way so that you don't have as many actions pulling in and data updating on that. So that's where you set this. Again, it defaults to the on-demand, and you need to set it as a builder to daily if that's what you prefer. Let's go. I'll go back out into my collection. And we're going to go straight into, let's do this one here. Okay, so here's a view, and you can see that I'm in the viewer here, not in the editor. So this is what people see when they go into the viewer, and they're just trying to consume that information. So at the moment, you see that there is no timestamp and there's no nothing, but you do see that I have a refresh button up here. So if this again was using the on-demand setting on the view, this may not be data as of this very second. It could have been whenever it was refreshed last. Because I have the refresher role as this user that I'm logged in as, and it's a view here at the individual level, I have this access to refresh. So when I kick off a refresh, you now see that we have this little indicator that says a refresh is in progress. And it's now collecting new data to update my charts, and it'll tell me when it completes here. So now the new data is there. It actually gives me a little indicator that says, hey, that new data is loaded, gives me a check mark, trying to tell you exactly what's happened. Now, the other piece to this that is very helpful is that you now have this timestamp. So now when I come into a view that's been refreshed and the data has been updated, not only do I see the most recent information, but I actually see when that information was updated. Again, if it's on demand, it may not have been updated for a week or a month, even potentially. The other nice thing here is it's going to show you who refreshed that data. So if there's multiple people using a view and looking at it, you can see if you refreshed it last, or potentially someone else has also used the view and refreshed it since you last refreshed it. So just trying to give people context and information to the data that is actually driving the creation of the charts. Okay, again, if you have a user that logs in, let's say you have stakeholders that are logged in, but they don't have the refresher role, they wouldn't have access to this refresh button. I'll show you here in a second what that would look like. They would only be able to look at the data as of the last person who refreshed it that had that capability or role or permissions that you've provided them through that role. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to hit the back button here. And let's go look at summaries and see how summaries work here. So when we go into a summary, again, here's a collection, and I just want to show a couple things here that are pretty important. So here's a collection, and this summary is a summary that I personally created. So I'm the creator. I have both edit and viewer access to that. Here's a summary that I didn't create. Bob, the builder, created it. And Bob did not give me edit access to that. He gave me viewer access to that. And There's going to be a couple differences here when it comes to refreshing of the data that's associated with the summary, and I want to walk through those right here. So let's first go into kind of the editor experience. So someone who has editor, has builder on this summary. Okay, so here's the one that I created. I only have 2, in this case, projects associated with this summary. Again, something that's new is you'll see that we have a timestamp to see when these summaries were updated. I have edit access on this. You can see because I can customize and set that up. Let's go right into the setup to look at this. So just like views had the ability to set the refresh frequency, when you're building summaries, if you're the builder, we now have an extra step. So previously, the pre-filter step was the last step of building a summary, but now we actually have a refresh frequency setting. So here, again, the same thing applies. You can create a summary and have it be updated nightly during that daily job update, or you can set it as on demand. We've talked to quite a few people as we've been working through this refresh system, and some people have summaries that, again, are only used weekly, and maybe they have 50, 60 people consuming that summary and need to update at different rates. And so the on-demand made more sense for them. Some people just want to update everything all at the same time. Again, you can do that and put it into the daily update. When you click save, then it will set that application up as you did. Now, if you're a builder, here's a distinction or something that you would want to know. When you're in creating your template, you create a template just like you create other views. And so there would be the ability to set the frequency on that template. But just know when you use that template, so you select your template here to create the summary, the setting that you have here, so if you choose on demand or daily in the summary build steps, would override the template setting. So whatever you want your refresh frequency to be set at for the summary is set here and not at the template level. So just an important distinction. Okay. Again, I can click refresh and it would refresh the items that I see here, which is everything in the summary. Again, just 2 projects, but it would be everything in that summary. I can do that because I have specific roles. I have edit access on this. I have builder access on this, and I have the refresher. Let's say that I don't want to give people the ability to refresh everything. Imagine that I have 500 projects running. I don't want someone to be able to come in here and hit refresh on all 500 projects. Because again, maybe only 20 of those projects relate to that certain project manager, or maybe to that certain portfolio. I'm going to hit back. And I'll show you what that looks like. So again, Bob the Builder created this. I'm going to go into that. Now we have filters here set up. So I'm going to go ahead and filter this, and we're going to choose Chase and run. Okay, so Chase only has 1 project here. And notice that there is the refresh button at this level, but that's because I have filters run. Now, again, I said I don't have edit access on this, so I can't refresh everything. But what I can do is I can refresh everything that's in the filtered state. So again, if I'm Chase, I choose my projects, I could refresh mine if I wanted to here. I'm going to go ahead and clear the filter and hit run. And now you're going to see I have actually 17 projects. Not all of these are, belong to Chase. And I also now don't have the ability to refresh these. So again, if Fred or Linda, don't want me refreshing their projects, or Paul doesn't want me refreshing their projects, I am not able to do that unless I go into the filtered state. So I have to filter by the specific thing, and then I kind of get that. It's a little bit of a control to kind of manage someone trying to refresh everything when other people are also trying to do work on their items. I'm going to go back. Actually, let's go back into the filtered state. So I'm going to go back in the filtered state, choose Chase, and I'm going to run it. Okay. So let's say on Chase, I did a project update on my status report. I need to pull in that information from the status report and update my information here. I can now do that in the filter state. I can hit refresh and then I'll accept. Now, again, notice we're trying to inform you what's going on. So we're collecting the data right now. It does, and if I click into this, so this is at the summary level. We're trying to give you some information on what's going on. Okay, so now that it's collected that data, I have a new message here. If I scroll, kind of hover over there, we have a tooltip. What this says is that, hey, this little lightning bolt says, hey, I've collected new data, and if you want to get that data, go ahead and refresh your browser. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, now I pulled in that new data and it says, as of a minute ago, we updated the data for this summary view. And when I roll over it, we could see, oh, it was updated by Gary. So just trying to give you as much information and as much context as we can during that. Now, if we go back out into the unfiltered state, so I'll clear. So actually, so we're on the Chase's project, which is annual comp application. Just make note of that. Now I'll go run here. Okay, so we'll find, where did Chase's go? Hold on here. Okay, so you can see here, some of these haven't been refreshed, so there's actually no data note here. But this is the one that we just refreshed. So we can see that this project status report was actually updated as of a couple minutes ago now, and it was refreshed by me. If we go back here, you can see this Women in Tech Initiative project actually hasn't been updated since the 23rd of October, and it was actually updated at that point by Bob the Builder. So again, we're trying to give people as much context and control over updating and pulling in new data to their reports as possible. Now, the nice thing here is, let's go ahead and click into this view here. Now, the nice thing is this information is carried over to the view itself. So again, that data was updated on the 23rd of October at 12:34 p.m. and it was refreshed by Bob the Builder. Now, one thing that we do allow is, if you think of the hierarchy, actually, let's just walk through this hierarchy together again. So this hierarchy, we're at the highest level. All the projects in the summary are available. So it's, 17 records. We don't allow, just everyone to update or refresh at that level, trying to give some control on who can do it. Again, we filtered, which is one level down. So the other way to do this is if we wanted to create a set. So let's say I wanted to update these 3 projects. I knew that they were a group of projects that we wanted to kind of review together, and we needed to review it now. I can actually create that set, and I'll just say demo set. So sets is another way to do this. Now at the demo set level, I could actually kick off a refresh here and then refresh those items in my set. So we have the highest level, which is all projects, and you have to have edit access, the refresher role. You have to have the most permissions. One step lower, we have filtered and set levels, and that we give, as long as you have the refresher role, you can refresh at that level. We'll remove this one more time. Oops, actually, I'm on the set, so I'll show all records. And then when you click into it and go into the view itself, at this level is like the lowest level or the most precise level of information that you're trying to get. And again, if you have refresher role, that's the And if you're logged in, that's the requirement here. You can kick off a refresh. And this works just like I showed earlier on the individual view itself. If I kick off a refresh, we then show the indicator that this data is being updated. It's just for the single status report in this case, single view, summary view in this case. But then when it updates, you'll get that same information with the timestamp of when it happened. So again, what we're trying to do is give as much context and as much capability for individuals to update the data and the reports and views that they need to update, but also not hindering other people that are trying to do the same work at the same time by overlapping the collection of the data. So hopefully that is helpful to understand how the refresh works. Now, the way that the permissions and the roles work together, I think is pretty important. Again, if you go read our documentation, we try to put as much detail in that as possible. So I think that will be a good resource for everyone involved. Okay, let's go back. Just a couple other, let me go back and look at my agenda really quick. Let's see here. Pull up the viewer. Okay, so we have discussed the name change. We discussed the refresher role, refresh frequency on summary, the manual refresh, which is the position of the button. Oh, one thing I do want to note, which I think is important, and that's when you go into a view that has, let's see, so we're in an individual view here, but there's no filters. If you would have a filter on this application or on this view, you would not have the refresh button, primarily because when you run the filter, you kick off a collection of that data in that moment. So the refresh button is kind of redundant in that position. So yeah, so the timestamp with filters is something that it's just a different experience. You would not see that as you do with these without filters. We've talked about timestamps on summary list and timestamps on summary views. Okay. Maybe stop sharing my screen just for a second to see if we have any questions. Looks like we're good for right now. Okay, so just a couple other highlights here for things. I don't really have anything to demo specifically with them, but I think they're good call outs for things that were improved in this release. So we talked about the refreshing of the data and making it ad hoc collection with the refresh, everything that we've already discussed, or with the daily job that runs nightly based on when you have it scheduled. We've done some optimization, quite a bit of optimization actually, to make that job perform better. So excited for that. Should see some improvements there. And we've also introduced, so one of the things that we get asked of all the time is customers ask about our chart library. And we have a pretty extensive chart library. You can configure things based on styles and the data that you put in there. But there's times that people have, a very specific chart that they would like to create, and they may not be able to get there through just a custom data collection. Maybe they have some visual component to that they want. So we have introduced a specialized chart feature, which allows us to help customers accommodate some of those requests. And there's nothing here for me to necessarily demonstrate on this side of it right now. But what I would say is if, that is you, I just described you as far as like having a very specific custom visual and data collection that you want that our chart library doesn't provide, or you haven't been able to get there through the matter or the avenues that exist today. I would reach out to, Rob on the sales team or Ksenia on the customer success team and ask them about the possibilities of using that channel also. Take one more look to see if we have any questions coming up. And I think we're okay. And I do agree that, this is going to be helpful and, make life a lot easier for those end consumers, not just the people building these things, but the people consuming them, making sure that they have the most recent updates in their views that they want, so that they can distribute out to their stakeholders the information that they want and data that they know should be used in their charts. So again, I appreciate your time today. If there's any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. It's just Gary Deach at VividCharts.com. And again, you can always reach out to Ksenia on the customer success team to connect with us. So again, excited for everyone to install this in their instances and start using these tools and give us some feedback. So have a great weekend.